Welcome to the Tech Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Vincent, and on this podcast, I interview people in tech. As always, this show is sponsored by the Consult and Launch Method, where I help experienced tech professionals build their consulting business alongside their day job without spending years figuring out the business side. We've helped clients go from first idea to initial client in 90 days and six figures within a year. To learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. On today's show, I'm pleased to introduce to you Anthony Mashford. Anthony is a solution or cloud solution architect at NetApp, and in particular, his focus is on Microsoft Azure. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you. It's nice to be here.
The first question I always ask, and I want to start with, looking back at your career, what is sort of the decision or maybe a project that you're most proud of, and why? Was there anything in particular that made it stand out to you?
Oh, that's a tough one because I've got quite a long career, so it's a lot.
If you have multiple examples, also fine. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's several I suggest, but I've been fortunate throughout my career to be part of some fantastic teams, and individually, as you're sure you appreciate, we don't win or lose together. We win or lose as a team, and I've seen some great projects over my time, but I think there's one quite relatively recently where customer was had been doing a lot of application workloads within Azure for many years, and tech moves on and modernization is required. Working with them to understand, where they were, what they needed, what the outcome they wanted to achieve. The team worked with them. It did, it took about 18 months to deliver in the end, but ultimately I was part of the team which migrated a customer from one service within Azure, which was, let's say, legacy, onto a much more modern service delivery. Huge impact to performance, huge impact to cost, as in driving down expenditure, and much more operational flexibility. That was really nice because it was very rounded in what we did, and it was nice that what we predicted would happened, as in better performance, less cost, more reliability, and operational reliability as well. So, I mean, there's been several over the years, but I think that one of late stands out.
And I know that you said you're part of the team. So, I mean, how big is the team, and who else is in the team that delivered all that?
Well, for us, I'm a pre-sales guy. I don't know, I like to say I talk a good game. I'm not necessarily delivering the actual end. I haven't got my hands on keyboards. But as part of that team, there was probably about 5 people, I think, involved from our side, as well as on the customer side as well. So there was about 3 people from the customer side. Myself, with the high level architecture, the coming up with the concepts, high level architecture, then overseeing, being involved really across the project towards the end, whereas you've got the teams that are actually doing the hands-on keyboard work, as well as some people from say customer success to make sure everything was on track, as part of the adoption and then post into production.
Fantastic. And is there any particular part of the project that you enjoyed more than others, or is it more the customer facing side, or is it more the internal, or what's?
I enjoy the customer facing stuff. I enjoy getting out, meeting people, having those conversations, building relationships, understanding what people are looking to achieve. I like the challenge. Many years ago, I worked with a friend at a data center, and we were talking about why we were in, let's say, IT for a loose term. And he wasn't in computers and everything else. He was a problem solver. He loved solving problems. And I like that. I like the challenge of understanding what's needed to be delivered, aligning that challenge to obviously, hopefully, an outcome, a business outcome for a customer, so they realize the value of what's being delivered as well. So I enjoy that part.
Yeah. And clearly this one stood out because the everything that you planned, predicted actually happened?
More or less. When we were speaking with the client around what the actual TCO might look like, we had a number which was, let's say, sort of middle six-digit saving annually. And we actually were very surprised. It was quite easy with this customer because the way they ran this particular workload was in a single landing zone in Azure, so a single subscription. So actually measure the cost, it was all from one pot. That number was substantially more than what we'd originally estimated, and this was after 1 year of production on that new environment, because there was a few little things that we hadn't accounted for, some little anomalies like licenses and stuff that we just hadn't thought about. They were kind of in the background, but actually it all stacked up, and that sort of middle six-digit number turned into a low seven-digit number. So, which the customer was over the moon with, and I was shocked.
Yeah,
As with the team.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a clear win-win.
Yes.
Now, obviously, and when I looked at your profile, yeah, it's very clear that you've been in the whole cloud space for quite a while, right?
Mm.
And if you were starting your tech career again tomorrow, knowing what you know now with all those changes that have happened, because obviously 20 years ago everything was on-prem, right?
Yep.
They moved to the cloud and all that cloud transformation projects, but technology changes and there are transitions happening all the time. But with that sort of context, what is the one thing that you would do differently if you had to start again tomorrow, or something that you would advise your younger self?
Well, I think from what you mentioned there, I've been working for the cloud focused on Azure since, well, full-time 2014. I really first experienced Azure back in 2012, and in the lifespan of the Azure platform, that's quite a long time because Azure went mainstream GA in 2010, so
Yeah.
it was in its infancy back then. But I come from a on-premises data center background, and working in the data centers, part of our job was lifting heavy bits of tin in and out of rack, running miles of cable, doing all that hands-on sort of, real hands-on work.
Yeah.
And then when I kind of, I would say, fell in love with the cloud, or when I sort of really started to see how Azure or cloud in general can impact, I love the fact that I could deploy a whole infrastructure from the comfort of my own keyboard without having to go into the data center, unpack boxes, recycle the cardboard, make sure I've got all the cabling, get diagrams out, lift it into a rack. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of dawned on me. And what also I found as a failing in, not, I can say it's a failing in myself, because my career started way back on VMS and Unix. So comfortable at the command line, comfortable with shell scripting. But in the world we are now, where infrastructure as code is, or should be, the de facto deployment method, I come from a infrastructure admin background.
Yeah.
Where I'm not that necessarily into the code. I haven't got that background of programming. So what would I say to my, if it was new now, really will take time to understand coding best practices, DevOps methodologies, all that sort of stuff. I think that's what the advice I would give to my new self starting this career now, because I've had to learn. I've kind of adopted and done my best to get up to speed with all of this, but trying to teach an old dog new tricks, that sort of thing. And I actually had a conversation with a former colleague of mine a few weeks back about this, and he is very good at that. He is exceptional at all of this, and and I'm at the part of my career now where I'm working pre-sales. I'm not at the sunset of my career, but I still love it. I still love to get my hands dirty. I still like to learn. I'm a technologist. I like to understand. But yeah, I think at the minute, get with the code understanding, understand programming methods, understand how DevOps practices works, and obviously get your head around the world of AI and how this has all been integrated.
Absolutely. And is that sort of very opportune at the moment for you? I mean, is that a big part of your current sort of conversation with customers, AI?
Oh yes, yeah. In my business, I work for NetApp, which for those who don't know who NetApp are, they're um, a storage company which has been in business now for well over 30 years. And we are the de facto lead in network attached enterprise file storage. We are the intelligent data infrastructure company. And we've led the way with various, sort of improvements and enhancements and, capabilities within network attached storage. And there was an interesting fact that I can't remember the guy's name, the CEO of NVIDIA. He stood on stage, was it last year, and made a statement that 42% of the world's file data lives on NetApp.
Oh, wow.
So if you think about the amount of information that's actually within that data that could be mined, it's so important now to be able to expose all of that to various AI models, capabilities, etc. So my company is absolutely, already well on that journey to being part of that. So yeah, for me and my team and the people I work with, it's a daily, a daily conversation. And we have a partnership with Microsoft. We have a co-developed product with Microsoft called Azure NetApp Files, and that is becoming even more important, because these AI-backed applications are extremely latency sensitive. So what we do in our world, what Azure NetApp Files can do in Azure network attached file storage, which is high throughput, but most importantly, low latency. So yes, it's quite common daily conversation in my
Daily conversations. Interesting. But not surprisingly though, but I think that in the world of AI, it's all a little bit about the data that you give it as opposed to, that will determine the quality of the output.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a new thing, right? I mean, we've known this for years. We've got all these tool sets. It's only as good as the quality of the data that it's being referenced, right? So making sure that that's good is important. Making sure it's secure, obviously, is also very important.
Yeah.
All sorts. And so that's kind of my daily work is understanding all of this, because I'm having to upskill myself. The team are having to upskill myself. It's, since we the world of cloud. I was talking to a friend again about a year ago. We were like reminiscing about back in the very early 2000s, where Microsoft would release an operating system, say Server 2000, and then I don't know, 6 months there'd be a service pack or a feature update, and then you'd have 6 monthly, yearly gaps between times that you would have to upskill.
Yeah.
And then 2003 came along. They launched the 2003 operating system, and then 2003 R2. And so you would have these quite large gaps where you could digest information, get competent experience, to the world we are in now, which is almost on a hourly basis that things change so rapidly, And I think I've learned something. I get on a call with a customer and they're telling me something I don't know. And then because they live and breathe that. I don't necessarily. So yeah, it's challenging to keep it.
That's well. Maybe just final sort of question, sort of maybe dovetail a little bit into what you mentioned earlier, but the next question is really around your career, right? So what does the next chapter of your career look like for you?
Well, I think this for all of us really, it's attached to some form of artificial intelligence. For me, I have an aspiration to do a particular role. I think that is coming closer to what I would like to be doing. But I would like to continue with the customer conversations, working with customers to figure out what they need, what they require, making sure that they are going to be getting good value for their business. And, keeping up with or trying to also lead the way with what we can do with AI, because I know there's you speak to 10 different people, you're going to get 10 different opinions about how artificial intelligence is going to impact us as a human race. But I think, you know, there's it's more us we should be looking at than the AI. You know, so I think helping people, part of my job is obviously guiding people to understand that, because we need to train ourselves equally as much as we need to train those AI models to understand how artificial intelligence can augment the human race, not overtake, not, you know, replace.
Yeah.
I watched a keynote by a gentleman who was the choirmaster at Cambridge University in front of a huge technical audience. And you think, well, why is a choirmaster of Cambridge University talking? Anyway, this guy, I can't remember his name, Eric somebody, but he created this virtual choir, which was been going on for a long, long time pre-pandemic. And then the pandemic happened. And obviously nobody was, you know, we couldn't sort of get together.
Yeah.
That's when his like virtual choir took off, which was people who recorded the parts to the various choral parts and then sent them in, and he stitched them all together and made this choir. And he did this wonderful thing during the pandemic where he got thousands and thousands of voices all singing together. But he told a story about he wove this into the world we have now in AI, and he said hundreds of years ago there was an instrument that was created, and people were saying, "Oh, it's the spawn of the devil. It's going to ruin musicians' careers." Yada yada yada. But he said, actually, what that instrument did was augment how music was made and made it better. And that instrument was the piano. And he likened it to AI and how we have this new instrument in AI, which people are saying, oh, it's, you know, we're looking at like, I don't know, what's the Terminator films, you know, Skynet, whatever,
Yeah.
the machine's taking over. But actually, if we take the right approach to it and we adopt it and we use it to augment ourselves and not be more efficient, be more, you know, collaborative, etc., then I think that's where it's going to succeed. So I think going forward, where my job lies is probably, obviously, I specialize in storage and data management, but I would like to be involved in that AI journey and helping people to understand and adopt it better.
Fantastic. That's a good one to close on, Ansley. Thank you so much for being on. Is the best way for people to get in touch with you is presumably by connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Yes, yeah, find me on LinkedIn, and please, I'm very welcome to connect with anybody who'd like to, anybody who's like-minded like myself.
Fantastic. I mean, I recommend people checking you out. And yes, thanks so much for being on the show, Anthony. And as a reminder to everyone listening, this show is sponsored by the Consulting Launch Method, where I help experienced tech professionals build their own consulting business alongside their day job, without spending years figuring out the business side. We've helped customers go from initial idea to first client in 90 days and 6 figures within a year. To learn more, connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message. Anthony, thank you.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.
Until the next episode. Take care.
Thanks.